In this video, we are going to build an AI interview coach website using React, Tailwind, and Puter.js. If you're looking for a fun and practical project to learn how to integrate AI into websites, this project is for you. It's beginner friendly, easy to follow, and it will look great on your portfolio once we finish it. The coolest part is you won't need an API key or worry about complicated setups for AI integration. All of that is handled seamlessly by Puter.js, letting us focus entirely on building the project itself, and it works by using just one line of code. To make this even easier for you, I will provide a starter project that you can download with everything we need already inside, so you can jump right in and code along with me. By the end of this video, you will have the skills to create your own AI-powered websites in the most easiest and quickest way possible. So, let's get into it. Before we start coding, let's quickly go over the starter project that I've prepared for this tutorial. You can find the GitHub link in the description to this project. This is a React project with Tailwind inside, created using Vite. Here, inside the app.jsx, we just have a background with a cool gradient and this h1. Inside the index.html file, we have a script tag that basically connects us to Puter, which is going to handle all of the AI features that we are going to use. So thanks to Puter.js, we are not going to deal with any of the setups or providing API keys. This is the only AI integration that we use in this project. Everything is simply ready to use. Here is the official documentation of Puter. We can take a look at some of the functions. We have the chat function, which is the one that we are going to use in this video. You can take a look at the models that it supports. We also have text to image, image to text, and text to speech. I have already created some videos using these functions. Don't forget to check them out as well. There is only one thing you need to do to make this work. There is a link in the description to puter.com. Go ahead and create a free account and log in. Unless you are logged in, AI features won't work. It's 100% safe and free. It also has a GitHub page, so if you're curious about it, you can just go ahead and check it out. After you create an account and log in, we are basically done. We also have a couple of additional packages. Let me show you. Here, besides Tailwind, we have Lucid React for icons, and we have something called React Code Mirror, which is going to help us to create that coding section on the UI. And we have a theme for it, which is basically a dark mode. And we have the language support for it, which is for JavaScript. And this is it. Everything is ready to go. Now we can start the code. Let's import the hooks that we are going to use. We will be using useState and useEffect. We're going to use useState to create state variables and store information, such as AI being ready or not, or creating a loading state, or saving a question that is generated by AI and sent to us. And we're going to use useEffect to create an effect that is going to check if the AI is loaded into the page or not. Next, we are going to import some icons from Lucid React, such as a code icon, a play icon, a rotate arrow icon, a check circle icon, and a left arrow icon. Next, we are going to import the code mirror. As I explained earlier, we are going to use this component on the UI to create a coding section for answering the coding questions. Next, we are going to import the JavaScript language support from code mirror and the theme, which is named Dracula, and that is it with the imports. Now, inside the app component at the top, we can start to create the state variables that we are going to need. Let's start by creating AI ready, set AI ready. The initial state is going to be false. We are going to use this to store the information that AI being ready or not. You're going to check if it's ready using a effect, and when it becomes ready, we are going to turn this to true. Next, we're going to create a state variable named question data, set question data. This will have an initial state of null. We are going to use this to store the question coming back from the AI. Next, we're going to need another state variable for the coding section, which is going to help us to store whichever code user typed. And we're going to save that answer inside this state variable, and we're going to send it to the AI for review. We're going to define a initial state as a string, use backticks. This is basically going to be a function named solution. Inside curly braces, we're going to create a new line that says your code here. And with this, we basically have a initial empty function inside the coding section. We have the feedback, set feedback, which will have an initial state of empty strings. This will be the feedback coming from AI. We are going to store it inside this variable. Then we're going to have a simple loading, set loading. Initial value is going to be false. You're going to use this to show a loading spinner on the UI. Then we have solved, set solved, which is also going to have an initial state of false. We are going to use this to mark a question as solved. Next, we have difficulty, which is going to have an empty string as initial value. We are going to use this to change the difficulty of the questions. And finally, we're going to have this variable named warning, set warning. We are going to use this to store any warnings and display it on the UI. It's going to have an initial state of empty strings, and this is it with the state variables. Now we can continue. Next, we are going to create an effect using useEffect to check if Puter is loaded or not. useEffect takes two variables, the function and when it is going to be executed. We want to check if Puter is loaded as soon as this component is mounted. So to do that, we can pass a empty brackets. This is basically going to mean run this effect as soon as this component is rendered to the page. Inside the function, we're going to check if it's loaded. Inside this variable, check ready using a interval, and we're going to run this interval every 300 milliseconds. Inside the interval, we are going to check if window.puter.ai.chat function exists. These question marks basically check if these are undefined. If this exists, then we're going to set AI ready to true, and we can stop the interval from running. Outside this variable, we are going to use clear interval again to clear the effect. So as soon as this page is loaded, this effect is going to run, and it's going to check if window object has the Puter AI.chat. If it's loaded, we are going to mark AI ready as true, and we stop the effect from running. Next, we're going to create a simple function named handle difficulty select. It is going to take a parameter named level. We are going to use this function to allow the user to select whichever level of questions they like. When they select a level, we are going to set difficulty as whichever level they selected. And if there is a warning, we are going to reset the warning. Next, we're going to create two very crucial functions. The first one is generate question, which is going to be an async function, because inside the function we are going to be sending API requests to chatgpt through puter.js. And we're going to have one more function named check solution, which is also going to be an async function for the same reasons. This is going to send an API request to generate a question, and after we generate the question and get the answer from the user, then we're going to use check solution to send the solution that user provide to the AI, and we're going to wait for the review coming back. Inside the generate question, first we are going to define the levels, which are going to be beginner, medium, and intermediate. Then we're going to check if the user has selected a level. Otherwise, we are not going to allow them to continue. So if the user is not selected a difficulty, then using set warning, we are going to show this message. Please select a difficulty level before generating a question. And we are going to exit the function. Next, we need to set some of these state variables. So if there are any warnings inside the warning variable, we are going to reset the warnings. And after setting the state variables is done, we are going to be sending the API request, and we will be waiting for the answer coming back. So that means we need to go into the loading phase. So set loading true. We are not going to have a feedback yet, but there could be a feedback from the previous generation. So let's reset that. We're also going to set solved to false again. For the same reasons, if there is a question generated before and it's answered, set solved could be true. We are going to reset it by setting it back to false. And we're going to set code to its initial value, which is this text. We can copy this and paste it inside set code. And since this question is going to generate a new question, that means we need to delete the old one. So set question data null. And we are done with the state variables. Now we can create the try and catch block. Inside the try block, we are going to be sending the API request, and inside the catch block, if we catch a error, we are going to send this feedback that says error, and we're going to display the error message. And after this is all done, we are not going to be in the loading phase anymore, so we can set loading false. So now inside the try block, we're going to create a variable named response. We're going to use the await keyword because we will be waiting for the answer back from AI. We're going to access the puter.ai and chat function. Inside the chat function, we're going to send a prompt to the AI. By sending this prompt, we will be asking the AI to generate a question like the lead code questions. The crucial part is to ask for a JSON object so we can parse it and display it on the UI. Let's say generate a random, and we're gonna pass the difficulty that the user has selected. So this is a dynamic prompt. Level coding interview question like on lead code. Return only valid JSON with this structure. Now let's define a simple JSON structure. We're gonna have the problem as a string and a example for the problem solution as a string as well. We're gonna have the constraints as a string again, and finally we're gonna have a note if there are any, so string or empty if none. And this is it with the prompt. After we get the reply, we are going to store it inside this variable, and we're going to check its type. So if it's a string, we're going to get it. If it's not, we're going to try to access the message content. Otherwise, we are just going to set it as an empty string. Then we are going to parse the JSON using json.parse on the reply. And after we parse the question, we are going to set it as the new question using set question data, and we're going to pass the parsed question. And this is it with this function. First, we define the levels, then we basically force the user to select a level, otherwise we don't allow them to continue generating a question. We clean up all the state variables, warning, and we go into the loading phase. We reset the feedback, set solved, and the coding section, and we delete the previous question if there is any. Then inside this try catch block, we try to send an API request to the AI, which is a prompt that asks to generate a question and basically expects a JSON object as the answer. After we get it, we check its type and parse it, and we pass the parsed question as the new one. If there are any errors, using the set feedback setter function, we basically show this error on the UI. And after this is all done, we set loading phase to false because we are not in the loading phase anymore. Let's continue with the check solution function. First, we're gonna have a base case that checks if the code section is empty. Then we are going to exit the function. Once again, we're gonna go into loading phase because we are going to be sending an API request and waiting for an answer back. Again, we're going to use a try and catch block. If there is an error, we are going to do the same thing. So copy and paste it. At the end of this, we are going to be out of the loading phase. So set loading to false. Inside the catch block, again, we're going to create a response variable using await keywords. We will be waiting for the AI to process the prompt. We're going to access the chat function using backtext. We're going to send a dynamic prompt. Now we are going to define the prompt to make the AI analyze the solution that user is going to be sending. You are a helpful interview coach. We we are going to show the question. So the question is, and then we're gonna pass the question data dot problem. And we are also going to add the user's solution on a new line using -n. Gonna pass the code, and we're gonna give it two rules. If the solution is correct, it is going to say correct, well done. And if the solution is wrong, it is going to give some hints, but do not reveal the full answer. And the prompt is completed. You can play around with this if you like to. This one as well. If you want to create a more complicated JSON object, you can go ahead and customize the prompts. Next, we are going to do the same thing we did here. So we can just copy and paste this to check the answer's type. We are not going to parse the answer because we didn't ask for a JSON object. This is going to return as a string. Since this will be a feedback, we are going to use the setFeedback setter function and pass the reply. Also, we are going to check if the solution is correct or not. So if the reply includes the correct text, then we are going to set solved to true because this means the question is solved. And that is it with this function. First, we check if the coding section is empty or not. Then we go into the loading phase. Using this try catch block, we send a prompt to the AI, including the user's solution and the question itself. It basically checks if the solution is right. If it's right, it says correct. If it's wrong, it is going to give some hints but do not reveal the full answer. We check the type of the answer and we display the feedback on the UI. If the reply coming back from the AI includes this text, this means the question is solved correctly. So we set solved to true. And if there are any errors, we show the error message on the UI and we quit the loading phase. And that was it with the logic. Now we are going to move on to creating the UI and connecting all of these functions to the UI. Let's start by setting this h1 as a gradient text. We are going to delete the part that says starter code and just leave AI interview coach. Let's delete these classes. Gonna make the text 6x large, and for smaller screens, gonna make it a lot bigger, 8x large, font bold. Gonna create a gradient to right from emerald 400 via sky 300 to blue 500. Gonna clip the text to the background and make it transparent so we can see through, and let's center it. And it looks a lot better. Next, right under this h1, gonna create a div with a width 100%, maximum width 7x large, flex direction column, and we're gonna center the items. This is going to be the main parent that is going to have the intro card and also the question section with the coding section right next to it. So if we don't have a question yet, that means we should be on the intro section. So we are going to create the intro card. Gonna set the width to 100% and maximum width to medium. Give it a padding of 10. Background gray 900 with 80% opacity. And we're gonna make the background glass using backdrop blur medium. Gonna give it a border and make it gray. Rounded corners with a little shadow. Gonna make the shadow sky 600. And when you hover over the card, gonna make the shadow bigger and also make the color a little lighter. Gonna use transition with duration 300 to make the hover effect smooth and center the text inside. Gonna have the code icon as a self-closing tag. You can use a self-closing tag for the icons. Gonna use MX arrow to center it. Margin bottom 6. Gonna make the color 400, width 24, height 24. And right under it, we're gonna have this H2 that says ready to practice. Let's make it bigger. Font semi-bold with text white and margin bottom 4. Right under this, we're gonna have this paragraph with this text inside. Let's make the color slate, margin bottom 8, text large. And we are going to create some space between the lines using leading relaxed. Right under this paragraph, we're gonna have a div with margin bottom 8 and a paragraph that says select difficulty. Let's make it sky 400 with margin bottom 4. Make the text large, font semi-bold, and align the text on the left. Right under the text, gonna have a div, which is going to be a flex container, justify center, gap 3, and using flex wrap, we are going to make it responsive for smaller screens. And for the bigger screens, there is going to be no wrap. Inside, we are going to map over this array that shows the difficulty levels, beginner, medium, and intermediate. I'm going to map over it, and for every level, we are going to display a button. Let's provide a key. We can use the level itself. We are going to call a function onClick, which is going to be handle difficulty select. I'm going to pass the level. So when you click on one of these levels, we are going to be saving that data inside the handle difficulty. We are going to store that data. Let's also style the button using dynamic styling, curly braces, and backticks. Padding on the left and right 6, top and bottom 3, fully rounded corners with font semi-bold, transition colors to make the hover effect smooth with a duration of 200, and cursor pointer indicating that this is a clickable button. Let's open a set of curly braces with $. If the user has selected the difficulty, then the selected one is going to have a background blue 500 with text white and a little shadow, and the not selected ones is going to have a gray background with text gray, and on hover it is going to be a lighter gray. And inside the buttons, we are going to display the levels. Outside this div, we're gonna open a set of curly braces to show a warning if the user has not selected a level inside a paragraph. We can show that warning. Let's make the warning text red 500 with semi-bold and margin bottom 4. Right under this, we're gonna have the button that basically says generate question. If we are in the loading state, it is going to say generating, and if it's not the loading state, then it is just going to say generate question. When you click on this button, we are going to call the generate question function, and this button will be disabled if AI is not ready or we are in the loading state. Let's style it with 100%, padding on the left and right 10, top and bottom 4, background gradient to right from sky 400 to emerald 400. On hover, we are going to change the gradient, text white, font semi-bold, and text large. Let's give it rounded corners and a shadow. Let's use a transition and duration 300 to make it smooth. When the button is disabled, we are going to lower down its opacity to 50, and we are not going to allow the user to click on it using cursor not allowed. So this was the intro card. If there is a generated question, then we are going to display the question section and the coding section. So let's create another parent div, give it space y6 to create space between the elements and width 100%. Inside, we're gonna have another div, which is going to be a grid. And for large screens, it is going to have 2 columns with gap of 6. First, we're gonna create the div that displays the question. It is going to have a gradient to right to bottom right from blue 950 40% to sky 950 to 50%. Gonna have a blur on the background and a border, rounded corners, and a drop shadow, padding 8, and space y4 to create space. Inside, we are going to group a h3 and paragraph inside a div. Inside the h3, I'm gonna say problem, and inside the paragraph, we are going to display the problem. I'm gonna make this text large, font semi-bold, text emerald 300 with a margin bottom of 1, and questions color is going to be gray 200. Right under this div, we can copy and paste this. This one is going to be showing the example. Let's change the problem to example. And instead of using a paragraph, we're going to use a tag called pre, which is basically going to help with the indentation. Let's give it a black background, padding 3, rounded corners with text gray 200, and white space pre-wrap. So right now, this is how the problem section looks like. This is the example section that we have just created. And this is how the problem section looks like. With this, we have also checked if the AI functions are working fine. And it looks like everything is working well because we have a question coming back with the correct JSON format. So under this div, I'm going to create another one. We can just copy and paste this again and customize it. This one is going to show the constraints. And we can delete this pre-tag and create a unordered list. We are going to use list disk to create little dots right next to the list elements. And it is going to be inside. Let's make it gray 200. So inside the unordered list, we are going to map over the constraints. But before mapping over it, we are going to split using a dash and n to basically have the constraints on new lines stacked on top of each other. And after that, we can map over it. We're going to have the line and index. For every constraint, we're going to have a list element with the key of index, and we're going to show it inside using curly braces and line. Let's see how it looks like by generating a question. Right under this div, I'm going to create a set of curly braces. I'm going to access the node that comes with the question data. And if there is a node, we are going to display it inside this div with a h3 in the same way that we did here. You can copy and paste this. You can say node, and inside the paragraph, we are going to display the node. There is a little typo with the constraints. If we scroll up to the prompt where we generate the JSON, this is supposed to be constraints. Now let's generate a new question to see how this section looks like. And there you go. We have the problem, the example, the constraints, and a simple note at the bottom. Next, we are going to create the coding section. Let's create a gray background, 800, 60%, a border, which is going to be gray, rounded corners, a shadow, and we are going to hide the overflow because we're going to have the coding section inside this div. Let's create a little header, background gray 900, padding on the left and right 4, top and bottom 3, a border bottom, which is going to be gray, flex, item center, and gap 3. You're going to have the same code icon, width 5, height 5, and text emerald 400. Right under it, you're going to have a h3 that says solution. Let's make it bigger with font semi-bold and text white. Right under this, we can use the code mirror component, and we are going to provide some properties. We want to get whatever the user has typed inside this section so that we can send it to the AI. So as the value, we are going to pass the code that the user has written. We can define a height, let's say 550 pixels. Remember at the top, we have imported this JavaScript language support. Now we need to provide it as well as an extension. So JavaScript, and because we are using React, we need to set JSX to true. We can set the theme as the theme I have downloaded named Dracula, and every time user types into a code inside this section, we are going to store it. You can use the onChange event handler, and every time value changes, you're going to use setCode setter function, and we're going to pass that value. So under these two divs, I'm going to create another section to display the buttons. Let's create a flex container, gap 6. On the larger screens, gap is going to be 10. Center the items, make the flex direction column, and for larger screens, flex direction is going to be row. Let's create a parent div for the buttons, flex, flex wrap, gap 2, and center the items. Inside this, we're gonna have 3 buttons. This first one is going to call for the check solution. It is going to be disabled when the app is in the loading state, or if the AI is not ready, or the code section is empty. Let's style it. Padding on the left and right 6, top and bottom 3, background gradient to right from blue to emerald. On hover, we are going to lower down the opacity, text white with font semi-bold, rounded corners. For the hover effect, we are going to use a transition. When the button is disabled, we're going to lower down the opacity to 50. Inside, we're going to have a text and a icon. So let's use flex, item center, and justify center with a gap of 2 and use cursor pointer. Inside, let's have the play icon with a width of 5, height 5. And if we are in the loading phase, gonna say checking. If it's not in the loading state, then gonna say check solution. Now we can copy and paste this button for the second one. This one is gonna call for generate question. It is going to be disabled if we are in the loading state or if the AI is not ready. We don't need to check if the coding section is empty or not. Gonna change the gradient color and the icon and the text. If we are in the loading state, it is going to say generating. If not, it's gonna say new question. And right under this, gonna have another button. This one is gonna say go back with a arrow left. It is going to be disabled when we are in the loading state. We can delete the rest. And on click, it is going to call for set question data to null. We are basically going to reset all the state variables because this button is going to take us back to the home section. Let's wrap this inside curly braces. So we delete the question, and we're going to set this coding, and we're going to set the coding section back to a empty function. Going to reset the feedback, set solved to false, set loading to false. Gonna delete if there are any warnings, and we are going to reset the difficulty selection as well. Let's change the gradient color. There is a little typo at the parent div of these buttons. Gonna set it to gap 3 to create space between them, and this is how the buttons look like. Under this div, we're gonna have another one which is also going to be a flex container with gap 3. Center the items and flex wrap. You're gonna have a paragraph that says difficulty with a text slate 300 and font semi-bold. We are going to copy and paste this mapping over difficulty selections right under this paragraph, and this is how it looks like. We can make the padding a little smaller, and right under these two divs, gonna create the feedback section. So if there is a feedback, then we are going to display this div. Let's style the div using curly braces and backticks. Gonna give it rounded corners with a padding of 6, shadow 2x large, and a backdrop blur. Using $sign and curly braces, we are going to check if the feedback includes this icon, which basically indicates that the solution is right. So if the solution is right, we're gonna show a green background with a green border. And if feedback includes this icon, which means there is a error, then we're gonna show a red background with a red border. And if there is no error or the question is not solved correctly, we are just going to set the background to gray 800, 60% with a border. And we're gonna make the border gray 700 with 50% opacity. There's a little typo. There should be a question mark. There you go. Inside this div, gonna have this flex container. Gonna center the items on the left, gap 4. And using the same logic, gonna display a check circle So width 6, height 6, and if the feedback includes this icon, then we are going to make this green 400. And if it includes this one, then we're gonna make the text red. And if the solution is not correct and there is no errors, we're just gonna display a blue text. Right under this icon, gonna have another div that displays the feedback. Gonna give it flex1 to make it cover one fraction of space, text grade 200, white space pre-wrap, and we're gonna set some, and we're gonna create some space between the lines using leading relaxed. Let's do a quick check by creating a medium level question. Here is the question, its examples and constraints. Here is the coding section. Now if I click on check solution, there is the feedback. It looks like the current code doesn't contain any implementation and it gives us some hints. Here is the solution to the problem. Let's delete a part and click on check solution to see if it provides any insights. There you go. The solution is closed, but it might miss the case when the subarray starts from index 0. If I provide the missing part and check the solution again, and we have the correct well done message, everything seems to be working fine. Create a new question. Here is the new question generated. Let's select a beginner level question. Here is a very simple question. And finally check a intermediate level question. There you go. Here is a much more complicated question and everything seems to be working fine. So this is how we can create this AI interview coach using React, Tailwind, and Puter.js. I hope you guys find the video helpful and enjoyed it. If you do, please not forget to subscribe. I will be making much more videos like this in the future. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.